All right, hey, morning. Yesterday we were able to finish up Romans 2, and today we're going to start up or continue on with Romans 3. But I think it's actually a good idea to review Romans 2 because I don't really have it as of yet. So let's see here if I can remember it. I looked it over before. So I think I might have it in my head a little bit, but we'll see. Okay, so Romans 2. You therefore have no excuse. You pass judgment on someone else because for whatever point you judge the other, you are condemning yourself because you pass judgment do the same things. Now we know God's judgment against those who do such things is based on truth. So when you, a mere man, pass judgment on them and yet do the same things, do you think you will escape God's judgment, or do you show contempt for the riches of his kindness, tolerance, patience, not realizing that God's kindness leads you to repentance? But because your stubbornness and unrepentant heart, you're storing up wrath against yourself for the day of God's wrath, when his righteous judgment will be revealed. God will give each person according to what he has done. To those who by persistence in doing good seek glory, honor, and immortality, he will give eternal life. But for those who are self-seeking who reject the truth and follow evil, there will be wrath and anger. There will be trouble and distress for every human being who does evil, first for the Jew, then for the Gentile. But glory, honor, and peace for everyone who does good, first for the Jew, then for the Gentile. For God does not show favoritism. All who sin apart from the law will also perish apart from the law, and all who sin under the law will be judged by the law. For it is not those who hear the law who are righteous in God's sight, but it is those who obey the law who will be declared righteous. Indeed, when Gentiles who do not have the law do by nature things required of the law, they are a law for themselves, even though they do not have a law, since they show that the requirements of the law are written on their hearts. Their consciences also bearing witness, their thoughts now accusing, now even defending them. This will take place on the day when God will judge man's secrets through Jesus Christ, as my gospel declares. Now you, if you call yourself a Jew, if you rely on the law and brag about your relationship to God, if you know his will and approve of what is superior because you are instructed by the law, if you are convinced that you are a guide for the blind, a light for those in the dark, an instructor of the foolish, a teacher of infants, because you have in the law the embodiment of knowledge and truth. You then, who teach others, do you not teach yourself? You who preach against stealing, do you steal? You who say people should not commit adultery, do you commit adultery? You who abhor idols, do you rob temples? You who brag about the law, do you dishonor God by breaking the law? As it is written, God's name is blasphemed among the Gentiles because of you. Circumcision has value if you observe the law, but if you break the law, you have become as though you had not been circumcised. I believe it's the one. No. I think it's to those who circumcise. I think so. To those who are not circumcised, To those who are not circumcised, it's not to those. If those who are not circumcised keep the law's requirements, will they not be regarded as though they are circumcised or were circumcised? They were circumcised. The one who is not circumcised physically and yet obeys the law will condemn you, who, even though you have the written code and circumcision, are a lawbreaker. A man is not a Jew if he is only one outwardly, nor is circumcision merely physical and outward. No. A man is a Jew if he is one inwardly, and circumcision is circumcision of the heart by the Spirit, not by the written code. Such man's praise is not from men, but from God. Okay, and in chapter 3, which we'll review again. What advantage then is there in being a Jew, or what value is there in circumcision? Much in every way. Much in every way. First of all, they have been instructed, or they have been entrusted with the very word of God. I think that's it. I'll probably have to review chapter 3, verse 1 and 2, but I think I got chapter 2 down. All right. Okay, great. So let's move on to chapter 3. Alright, but before that, I need to get a fan because it is scorching in here. It's a freaking sauna. Alright. Let's plug this in. Come on. There we go. Okay. So for today, we're going to be reviewing chapter 3, verse 1 and 2, which I think I got, but then learning chapter 3, verse 3 to 5. Okay. So, chapter 3, verse 3. What if some did not have faith? Will their lack of faith nullify God's faithfulness? Okay. So what if some did not have faith? Will their lack of faith nullify God's faithfulness? Okay. What if some did not have faith? Will their lack of faith nullify God's faithfulness? Okay. So going back, what advantage then is there in being a Jew? Or what value is there in circumcision? Much in every way. First of all, they are entrusted with the very words of God. Well, they have been entrusted. They have been, not they are. They have been entrusted with the very words of God. Okay, let's go back. So chapter 3, verse 1 to 3, hopefully. What if some... Okay. What advantage then is there in being a Jew? Or what value is there in circumcision? Much in every way. First of all, they have been entrusted with the very words of God. Verse 3. What if some lack faith? What if some lack faith? It's do not have faith first. What if some do not have faith? Will their lack of faith nullify God's faithfulness? Yeah. Okay, cool. Got it. So let's try that again. Chapter 3, verse 1 to 3. What advantage then is there in being a Jew? Or what value is there in circumcision? Much in every way. First of all, they have been entrusted with the very words of God. What if some do not have faith? Will their lack of faith nullify God's faithfulness? Okay. Okay, cool. Got it. So now verse 4. Not at all. Let God be true and every man a liar. That's cool. Not at all. Let God be true and every man a liar. Not at all. Let God be true and every man a liar, as it is written. Okay, verse 4. Not at all. So let's go to verse 3. What if? Yeah. Verse 3. What if some do not have faith? Will their lack of faith nullify God's faithfulness? Not at all. Let God be true and every man a liar. Yeah. As it is written, so that you may be proved right when you speak and prevail when you judge. So that you may be proved right when you speak and prevail when you judge. So that you may be proved. So that you may be proved right when you speak and prevail when you judge. Okay. So let's try verse 4 by itself. Not at all. Let God be true and every man a liar, as it is written. May you be Nope. May you be proved right when you speak and prevail when you judge. So that you may be proved right when you speak and prevail when you judge. Okay. So verse 4. Not at all. Let God be true and every man a liar, as it is written, so that you may be proved right when you speak and prevail when you judge. Okay, let's try again. Verse 4. Not at all. Let God be true and every man a liar. As it's written, so that you may be proved right when you speak and prevail when you judge. Okay, so going back, let's go back from the top of chapter 3. What advantage then is there in being a Jew, or what value is there in circumcision? Much in every way. First of all, they have been entrusted with the very words of God. They have been trusted with the very words of God. Oh crap! What's verse 3? I'm going to verse 4. Oh, if some do not have faith, will their lack of faith, if some do not have faith, will their lack of faith nullify God's faithfulness? Not at all. Not at all. Let God be true and every man a liar, as it is written, so that you may be proved right when you speak, and prevail when you judge. Okay, let's try it again. I'm still not very confident. So from the top, verse 1 to 4. What then? What advantage then is there in being a Jew? Or what value is there in circumcision? Much in every way. First of all, they have been entrusted with the very words of God. What if some do not have faith? Will their lack of faith nullify God's faithfulness? Not at all. Let God be true and every man a liar, as it is written. So then you may be proved right when you speak, and prevail when you judge. Okay. Okay, and then verse 5. I think I got it. Okay, verse 5. But if our unrighteousness brings out God's righteousness more clearly, what shall we say? That God is unjust in bringing his wrath on us? I'm using human argument. Yeah. Oh. As wordy as Paul is, I like Romans because it's so almost logical, right? Like every logical argument of sort of trying to manipulate God and sort of using his grace and all these things. Like if I do this, because of who God is or what I know God is, I can do this, and therefore I can manipulate God in that sense. But Paul's saying no, you can't. You can't. You can try, but you can't, and all your arguments fail, right? So right now he's saying, if our unrighteousness brings out God's righteousness, more clearly, if we can understand God's righteousness better because of our sin, is then are we because of our righteousness, are we helping out God's righteousness, and therefore he can't judge us? Hey, why don't we do that? It's no, you can't. That's not a human argument. Stupid. All right, so verse 5. But if our unrighteousness brings out God's, this is the argument is hilarious. It's so stupid. But at least I know I've thought like this before. But if our unrighteousness brings out God's righteousness more clearly, but if our unrighteousness brings out God's righteousness more clearly, but if our unrighteousness brings out God's righteousness more clearly, what shall we say? But if our unrighteousness brings out God's righteousness more clearly, what shall we say? Okay. But if our unrighteousness brings out God's righteousness more clearly, what shall we say? That God is unjust for that God is unjust. Okay. But if our unrighteousness But if our unrighteousness brings out God's righteousness more clearly, what shall we say? That God is unjust in bringing his wrath against us? That God is unjust in bringing his wrath on us? That God is unjust in bringing his wrath on us? But if our, I'm going to be very, I think Paul is saying this very sarcastically. But if our unrighteousness brings out God's righteousness more clearly, what shall we say? That God is unjust to bring his wrath on us? I'm using a human argument. That God is unjust in bringing his wrath on us? I'm using a human argument. Okay, verse 5. But if our, I'm being very sarcastic here, but if our unrighteousness brings out God's righteousness more clearly, what shall we say? That God is unjust in bringing his wrath on us? I'm using a human argument. Parentheses. Okay, so let's go back up to verse 4. Not at all. Let God be true and every man a liar. As it is written, so that you may be proved right when you speak and prevail when you judge. But if our unrighteousness brings out God's righteousness more clearly, what shall we say? That God is unjust in bringing his wrath on us? I'm using human argument. Okay. Verse 3 to 5 now. What is it? Something about faith. What is it? Oh yeah, what? What if? So the first 3 is what if, and then verse 5 is but if. Okay. So verse 3, what if some do not have faith? Will their lack of faith nullify God's faithfulness? Not at all. Let God be true and every man a liar. As is written, so that you may be proved right when you speak and prevail when you judge. But if our unrighteousness shows God's righteousness more clearly, what shall we say? That God is unjust to bring his wrath on us? I'm using human argument. Brings out. Okay, so it's not brings out. Not shows. Brings out God's righteousness. Okay. Okay, so let's try it again. 3 to 5. So what if? So what if first? What if some do not have faith? Does their lack of faith nullify God's faithfulness? Not at all. Let God be true and every man a liar, and every man a liar. As is written, or I'm not sure if it's every man or man a liar. As it is written, so that you may be proved right when you speak and prevail when you judge. But if our unrighteousness brings out God's righteousness more clearly, what shall we say? That God is unjust in bringing his wrath on us? I'm using a human argument. Okay, cool. I think I got it. Okay, so going from the top, chapter 3, 1 to 5. What advantage then is there in being a Jew, or what value is there in circumcision? Much in every way. First of all, they they have been entrusted with the very words of God. Okay. First off is what if? What if some lack faith? What if some lack faith? Does their lack of faith nullify God's faithfulness? Not at all. Not at all. Let God be true and every man a liar. As it is written, so that you may be proved right when you speak and prevail when you judge. But if our unrighteousness brings out God's righteousness more clearly, what shall we say? That God is unjust in bringing his wrath on us? I'm using human argument. Okay, I think I got it. To look it over, review definitely. But yeah, I think I got it. Cool. All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.